Hello and welcome to the first in a brand new series of Mee Gindys.
Well, they've let us loose again. Can you believe it?
No, not really, to be honest. Not hearing the last episode.
If you are new to this series, it's essentially where we go out and about around the Isle of Man and just say, I wonder about a lot of things and hopefully find out some answers.
There's lots of things to wonder about and they're all going to be in this programme. Stay tuned. So what are we starting off with in this series, Beth? I know you've had some ideas since we were last on air.
Well, I have. I've had several ideas. Some of them I'll hold over, OK? So let's not give them all away at once. But one of the things that we're starting off with in this series is an exploration of a building that I have been past many, many times, that I use the products of on a daily basis almost.
Is it a chemist? No.
Thank you. But I've never actually been inside. And we are talking about the wonderful Laxey Flour Mill. I should say it's easy to see, not so easy to find, as we discovered.
Yes, it was a bit of a... If you haven't been down there, you'll have seen the building. Getting down there can be a bit of a challenge. We found there in the end, though, and, well, here's a little bit of what we found.
Can you hear me?
Not very well. It's very exciting, though. Look at this. Proper production line.
It is. They said it would be very difficult to talk while the machine was on, and they're not wrong, so we'll watch a few more bags going past, and then we'll try and find out a little bit more about what's happening. But it is great. It's like a mixture between Heath Robinson meets 21st century sci-fi. So what do you make of that then, Beth?
I was quite hypnotised by watching that. So we were watching the packing machine and the
you can hear
flour.
it still going in the background. I think they're going to shut it down in a minute.
Just amazing though, wasn't it? And just seeing something like that in action, you get a sense of what goes into making the things that we see on the supermarket shelves.
Well, we were saying when we came here, because we got a little bit lost coming in, because I've driven past it, you've driven past it, over the bridge, you look down, you see it all there. It's been there all my life. And yet I've never actually, this is the first time I've ever actually been in.
I know, and it is, like I say, one of those things that we're so familiar with in many ways, but actually, how does it work?
Well, that is the million-dollar question. And we're actually standing down here surrounded by flour. There's flour everywhere we look. There's the self-raising, of course. There's the Laxey Queen of Flowers, the lovely new packaging. And it's a mixture of the old and the new down here, I guess.
It is, yes, very much so, yes.
Now, the new machine, when's that machine gone in, the one we've been watching? Because I was saying it's sort of, part of it you think Heath Robinson, part of it you think 21st century, sort of new technology coming in.
That's been in there for about 4 months now, that one, the new machine, yeah.
Brilliant. What sort of difference has that made?
Oh, a hell of a lot of difference. Our old machine was using the whole workforce to get a pallet of flour, basically one pallet a day. That'll do a pallet of flour in 25 minutes.
That's a massive difference.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that's only a recent, so what, 4 months you said? So
Yes,
so very
yes,
recent innovation
yes.
actually going in.
Mm-hmm, yes.
And the actual process is the process of actually making the flour, does that remain the same?
The process is exactly the same, making the flour. It's just it's more economical now with the new machine in bagging it, because the old machine was a bit everywhere. We had a time motion view done on it, and we were losing 15 to 20% waste of every run of flour, whereas as you can see, the waste on that machine is totally nothing.
So Jason, what's your role here?
I'm the mill manager.
And we're looking at some photographs around here which say that Laxey Flour, they say the Laxey Glen Mills have been going since 1860. What is the history to the mills?
We've had a number of fires over the history. The mill was shut down for the best part of 4 years because it was decommissioned because of all the fires, and then RG Coal, it's brought it back into light, and then ever since then it's been going strong.
And what about, because I was thinking, I mean, I've read before, I know there's sort of in flour plants like this where you get a lot of fine particulates in the air, I always understand there's a sort of an explosive risk. So do you have to have sort of ventilation systems
Yes, we've got big vents on the top of the mill, as you probably see as you go out. So there's big vents. We have 3 different dust collection systems throughout the mill, which are working vigorously to reduce that risk.
Keep that down all the time. And the actual massive hopper silo, call it what you will, that people go past, is that grain going in there?
Yes, there's 4 silos, and then we run tests on the grain, which in turn then determine which silo the grain is going to go into.
And what's in each silo then? Is it a different type of grain?
Not different type, different protein levels. So we've got one silo which is predominantly low protein, which is a low protein wheat, and then the other 3 silos is high protein.
Okay, and this is all obviously grain coming from Isle of Man farmers.
All from the Isle of Man, all locally sourced from the north of the island.
So how long does it take from that grain arriving to the actual final product?
Well, in the mill, it's a bit different to mills in the UK. We will collect our whole year's supply of wheat over a couple of months, and then we store it then. Whereas in the UK, they might be buying grain and then using it in a couple of weeks. We store ours and then use it throughout the year.
And how many different types of flour are actually produced down here? Because we're looking around here, there's the self-raising, I think we were watching coming off the machine before, and there's plain flour, obviously. How many different types actually produced?
We currently make 10 different varieties of flour.
10?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's far more. So that's something. So that's self-raising, plain. You've got the, what else is there? I'm trying to think.
Self-raising plain. We've got 2 strong bread flours, which is Manx King and Manx Queen. We make a soda flour, which is used for the bonnet loaf.
The proper soda loaf. Yeah, I've done that.
And we do a granary loaf as well. Granary seed mix as well. And then we do various other bread mixes, Pioneer, which is basically a white flour with extra wheat germ added.
And is there more sort of interest in some of these more specialist flours now?
There is, but we can't get away with the fact that our 3 biggest sales are the plain,
the big ones,
the self-raising, and the strong bread flour. Yeah,
stands to reason, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Are you a bit of a baker yourself?
I was actually a baker before I moved here. There's actually 2 other members of the staff. We actually worked together as bakers, and then one after another, we all moved to the mill.
That watery sound wasn't actually down at the flour mill. It was Beth having a drink.
I'm just pouring myself a little cup of tea.
And those little clicks and pops, I think there's a lot of equipment and stuff down there. I think that's just coming through. I know when I was listening to the recording, it wasn't me sort of constantly knocking my microphone out. It was just in the background there. A fascinating place, though, and a place I've driven past a million times, never once been in before.
No, it was lovely. And a little bit later, Jason actually gave us a tour, which is wonderful, and we'll hear a little bit of that. But that was Jason Duke, who is the mill manager down there. But I'm surprised at how small the team is and how much they do. And it just shows, I think, as we will find later, that the industrialisation of this process must have helped enormously, because you can imagine down there, years ago, hundreds of people being there and part of this process. But what a wonderful place.
Yeah, and I won't mention the fact that you were there before me and I found you in a panic saying, how do you get down to it? Sort of
Flagging you down on the road.
Looking longingly over the bridge, thinking, do I have to abseil? Now then, one thing we have been having fun with over the last 2 or 3 series of Mee Gindys are these sort of little challenges, little video challenges, which we like to post online. I say challenge, I don't know whether it's the right word. It's just something quirky, usually weird scientific experiments that I did as a child, I think, based with air pressure or refraction or something else, or anything we can sort of do that looks sort of vaguely interesting and, perhaps just sparks the imagination.
Well, yes, so it is essentially, I think, Howard, just the contents of your head, isn't it? So here we are, a start of another Mee Gindys run of challenges. We're back in the Manx Radio kitchen.
I think you've got to do the next one though, haven't you? Because it looks like me being Mr. Sadie doing all this. Anyway, this is another little thing you can do at home, anywhere I suppose, in the Manx Radio kitchen. And here's the challenge then, Beth. So if we can see this piece of paper over here with the arrows on.
Okay,
and
beautifully drawn.
Beautifully drawn. It took me about half an hour, that. So you've got the top arrow going to the right, the bottom arrow going to the left. How can you change the direction of those arrows without touching the piece of paper?
Hold that a second.
Okay, I've got it.
Like that?
That's it. Did I say right back to front? There we go.
There we go.
Right, so the top one's going to the right, the bottom one's going to the left. You've just touched the piece of paper there.
Oh, did you say without
touching the piece of paper?
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that.
It's easier if you have a child to do this
that
experiment with. Right.
Okay, I'll put it back.
So,
right, okay.
yeah, that's made all the difference. Without touching the piece of paper.
Right.
Right, okay.
Okay.
So there's a challenge. And the answer is, of course, you just move the glass in front of it. So if you come down and shoot at the right angle, here we go. Top right, bottom left, and then we just bring this glass of water in front, and then hopefully...
Oh, look at that! Top left, bottom right.
Yeah. So there you go, the wonders of science again. Refraction, of course, no magic really. It's a refraction that light bends when it passes through different mediums, through the glass and through the water, and it goes through a focal point and then carries on in sort of straight lines, so they cross over, and the arrows go to the other side.
Is that why when you have a spoon and you're looking at on the
sort of
back, it goes the other way round?
Yeah. Or if you stick a stick or whatever into the water, it seems to sort of bend and come out at a different angle. And why, if you're sort of spear gunning, not that I've ever spear gunned a fish, but you have to aim way in front because of the different angle. But there we go. It's the wonders of refraction.
Marvellous.
Yeah, there we go. Another wonderful little trick you can do at home. Amaze your friends, but find a child or a 5-year-old, because otherwise they're just going to pick the piece of paper up and turn it over.
Genuinely, I missed the instruction. I didn't hear you. Why am I just cackling in the background?
You're always
there?
cackling in the
What
background.
is that?
That sort of thing. Normally
I wonder
something's gone
why.
wrong.
I wonder why.
I don't know. I wonder. There's another ponder for you. And of course, you can see just what we're talking about there. These sort of things work better on video than on radio quite often. And hopefully it'll come across nicely on the Max Radio site. Just to go along and enjoy the video, see what you make of it, and let us know. And if you've got any ideas or little quizzes or little things that you used to do as a child along those lines, or perhaps you still do them now, who knows? Let us know, and if we can recreate them, we will do. You've got some ideas as well on that front, I think. One I'm still not quite certain how this is going to work, but go on.
This is something that has come to me. We've got our new late lunch programme, and every Wednesday we are joined by Mike Hewley from My Free Mind. He's just wonderful. So he's introducing us to the world of mindfulness, and we know that it's very important for us all to take some time out and to be mindful, to meditate, to just find that space in your daily life. And so I thought I could challenge myself to be mindful, do a mindful meditation every single day for the duration of this series, and see if it makes any difference.
Right. And how are we going to know if it's made any difference? Is it going to stop you cackling? Are you going to become a nicer person, a quieter person?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. We will see.
And just how do we measure Beth balance?
Well, basically, I suppose I'm going to tell you how I feel. So. I don't know. I've been talking to Mike about this, and he has promised that I will see benefits. Whether anybody else will, I don't know. But he has directed me to his website, which is My Free Mind. You can find all the links on the Max Radio Facebook page, because he does a weekly podcast for us as well. So I'm going to be using those. I'm going to be using his own material that's on his website. I'm going to dedicate 10 minutes. He says I just need 10 minutes a day, and all will become amazingly clear. I don't know.
Neither do I. Beth, you have a mind like a butterfly. And by an amazing coincidence, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about next. Butterflies, it's that time of year, isn't it, when people are getting back out into the garden, the weather's warming up, we've had a lovely Easter. Of course, it's going back to winter now that I've said this, isn't it? But the butterflies are out and about, and surely one of those great sort of harbingers of spring and summer, and just so much beauty. People think of anything that's delicate and colourful and lovely and light, and you think of butterflies. And we have a goodly number on the Isle of Man, although their habitats and their numbers have been up and down somewhat, and quite recently, and this is what sparked it, there was something in the BBC saying that some numbers in the UK are severely down. We don't have all the species that you'll find in the UK here on the Isle of Man, but we do have quite a good number, and a man who knows more than most. He says I can't call him an expert, although frankly, if there's anyone who knows a great deal more, I've yet to meet him or her, and this is Mr. Gary Curtis.
We have 20 species resident on the Isle of Man.
And that compares in the UK to?
The UK is between 58 and 60.
Okay, so just a tad under half of the species you might find throughout the UK.
Yeah.
And have those figures varied at all over the years that you've been looking at butterflies on the island?
On the Isle of Man, we've actually increased our number of species. So they've gone up by 3 species in the last 20 years or so. So we've got more species, but we've got less butterflies.
Yeah. So give us some highs and lows then. So what's actually doing relatively well on the island species-wise currently?
Relatively well. Last year in particular was holly blue. We had lots of reports from island-wide, and so that's had a very good year last year.
And I always remember your top tip for a holly blue is look up, not down.
That's right, yeah. The common blues.
I'd never seen any until you gave me that tip, then I started seeing them.
Yeah, that's right. And around holly bushes in the spring as well, as the name indicates. So they've had good years. Some species haven't had such a good time as well. So small tortoiseshell in particular, a once really common species, has decreased in numbers.
And is that climate change? Is that habitat loss? Is that?
I think there's a combination of these things. Small tortoiseshell, it's a little bit unexplainable in some ways, but it is a butterfly that hibernates a lot in human houses and sheds, human accommodation, if you like, and we attract it into our gardens, and it appears to be hibernating in houses more and more as a result of that. But the trouble is, we then switch our central heating on in December and January and wake the butterfly up, and it either perishes in the house or it escapes through the window out into the cold winter's air.
And I suppose, again, some people who might be, very house proud or fastidious, who might see things in the corner, or people, it's the sort of thing they might not give a second thought to and just sort of sweep out of the way, as it were.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that can happen. But we've had quite a few reports over the winter of people who've actually noticed them in the corners of their houses and actually left them alone and then counted them out as well when they've woken up.
And do you think numbers on the island have fluctuated widely in the years you've been looking at them? From year to year, as it were?
I wouldn't use the word fluctuated. I'd say decreased for most species. Fairly steady decrease.
So it is a steady decline?
It is a steady decline. A few are holding on quite well. They tend to be the ones that are coastal, where we can't get at them to damage their habitat. So species with greyling and dark green fritillary. And also species of woodland, which you mentioned, the holly blue, there's a speckled wood, the comma as well. They all seem to be doing okay. Butterflies of the open countryside and the hedgerows, they're not faring so well.
Okay, yes, so there is a split there, really. And yet you'd have thought woodland was actually being reduced sort of year on year, it seems, or is that not the case, do you think?
I think Manx woodland is maturing a little bit, and I think that's certainly helping species like the holly blue. And we are actually reversing what we did several hundred years ago in cutting everything down in actually planting more nowadays. So Manx woodland is slowly on the increase.
And do you think, again, you've been watching for a long time, and you do quite a bit yourself out of your own interest of looking at species, bringing some in. You brought in some pupa today. Amazing, really, because again, unless you actually knew you've got some orange tip pupa that you wouldn't know. You just look at those. They're so well disguised and also remarkably robust, and yet to the untrained eye, you wouldn't have a clue, would you?
No. And I wouldn't be able to find those in the wild either.
Yeah, it's very tricky. So is there much, you think, obviously if people are interested, they will follow their own passion, but just for the average sort of man and woman in the street with a garden or something, is there much people can do to help some of these species if they've got a patch of land at the back, if they've got a garden or a little bit of space?
You can to a limited degree in gardening, but gardening for butterflies and a lot of wildlife in general isn't the overall answer. We have to look more to the wider countryside. We have to make sure they've got sufficient habitat. Gardens contribute a little bit, but the realistic situation is that unless you can provide lots of long grass and lots of what people would term weeds, which I call wildflowers, then there's a limited amount that we can provide in gardens.
And valuable creatures to have around, do you think? I think I don't really know many people who don't like seeing a butterfly. I mean, they're always colourful, beautiful things to see, and such sort of fleeting presences as well quite often. Do you think the world would be a poorer place if the numbers did drastically decline?
It would be a poorer place, but butterflies are perhaps more of an indicator species than so many other species. And the big worry really is that if butterflies are in decline, then there are thousands of species of insect that are likely to be in decline also. So as an indicator species, they're telling us that we've got problems in the countryside.
So I was going to say, you were saying decline. That's and a worry. So the fact that generally the figures are going down for the species is something a larger concern than just the butterflies themselves.
For me, the important thing with butterflies is not so much the numbers, but the range of them. In other words, where you find them across the island. So if we're now getting parts of the island where we're struggling to find butterflies, that would concern me more than a decrease in numbers in other places. It's more about where we can find them. And if those places are decreasing all the time, that means they're being confined to smaller and smaller areas. And that has its risks as well, looking forward.
The wonderful Gary Curtis, who, like I said, knows an awful lot about butterflies. And yes, I've been out with him several times in the years past, and Man in the Wild and such like, and wonderful. His top tip, the one I always remember, was that there's one species, should appeal to you actually, called the holly blue. And I thought, what a lovely little pretty thing. And I kept looking out for it around holly bushes, never saw one. And I went out with Gary one time and he said, Well, you're looking the wrong way. You're looking down. You want to look up. As soon as you looked up, because they all fly at about sort of 8, 9, 10 feet, so they're above your head, not in front of you or down at your feet. As soon as I started looking up at Hollybush, I started seeing them.
Oh, how lovely. We were out in Glen Helen over the bank holiday weekend. We saw some gorgeous cream-coloured ones with bright orange on their wings. They were lovely.
I think they are orange tips. Yeah, as I understand it. My butterfly, it should be quite good because there's only a limited number, unlike moths where there's hundreds and hundreds and thousands of moths. Just on the Isle of Man, there must be probably several thousand species if you do micro moths and whatever. Unless you're an absolute dedicatee, you haven't got a hope in hell, I don't think, of getting around all of them. But butterflies, though, like I said, there's only a relatively limited number, so you should be able to identify them all, although I can't.
Interesting listening to Gary talking about flowers there, because I found a packet of seeds. I don't know how long I've had it, but it was called Butterfly Mix. I don't think you grow butterflies. I think it is flowers, which will attract butterflies. So we've planted them. I will keep you updated on their progress, but nothing so far.
It doesn't say the date on the packet.
No.
Well, never mind. You never know. You never know what's going to come up. Right, where are we off to next? We're going. I think we're going for the second part of our little rummage round the flour mills down at Laxey, which we were hearing earlier on. This wonderful new packing machine they've got down there. If you've driven past the building, it's a wonderful sight. And yet we heard a little bit more from Jason.
And how long have you been here then? You've been here?
14 years I've been here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, so you're really used to it.
And I've been management side for just over a year.
And how many people work down here?
On the mill, the actual workforce in the actual mill is only 5 people. And then we've got the 2 ladies in the office.
Yeah, wow. And do you actually do tours actually come round? Because I was saying, this is literally in my life, this is the first time I've ever been into this building. Can people actually come and see it, or is it something realistically, because of the nature of the job, that you don't encourage visitors?
We did used to do tours, but then, as you know, health and safety is kind of a bit OTT. So as of currently don't do any more tours, but we have been looking into that side of things, talking to Manchester National Heritage and becoming a heritage site, but there's a long way to go on that yet.
Because people are fascinated now with the provenance of their food, aren't they? And they really have got that sense of wanting to know where it actually comes from.
Yeah. I think with the mill only being an old mill, a lot of the mills in the UK now are designed with that sort of aspect in mind, whereas because of the age of the building, that wasn't factored in back in the day when it was built.
How did you get it in the first place? You were saying you were a baker. Did you come from a baking background, or?
No, I left from school, but I learned after that my granddad was actually a baker as well, which I didn't know until I was well into it. So whether it's just coming in the genes, I'm not too sure.
Well, you never know.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? It's an incredible place. And like I said, I can't say to you, pop on down and see it, because you can't just, I'm afraid, wander in willy-nilly. However, if you are driving through Laxey at any stage and you see the big hopper on the side and you look down and you see the mills there and think about it, hopefully now you might have a little bit more of an idea of actually what goes on here.
Jason, I can't help noticing that we're wearing these little blue hats and
Very
you
fetching.
don't seem to have one on. Is there any reason for that?
No, not really. I've just took it off to talk to you because the flower instructions have finished.
Oh, right, okay. Just checking that this wasn't like a setup or anything.
You just obviously like yours more than I do.
And if you want to see what Beth looks like in her blue hat, then just go online.
Then you won't, because I can destroy the photograph.
Manx Umpa Lumpa. Would you like to have a quick walk around the mill as well?
That would be amazing,
great.
if that's okay.
Just get some more shots and stuff.
You're right. Great, thank you.
Yes. And there'll be more on that next week, because we did indeed, very kindly from Jason, having gone there for what we actually were going to do, take a look at their new flour production and such like, and how it's all done. We then had a tour of the whole building.
It was absolutely fascinating, as I keep on saying. A little bit more cackling, I'm sure, to come when we hear from Jason Duke, mill manager at Laxey Flour Mill. Thank you so much to them for letting us come round. If you have an old building or something historic that you'd like us to see and come and do a piece for Tammy Gindys, we'd love you to get in touch with us. You can email Howard Kane at manxradio.com or Beth Espy at manxradio.com. And Howard will be round with his microphone.
Thank you very much. Yes. Or Beth, if you're lucky. And her orange tips. Now then, one thing we've also been keeping, which has been great fun, is we have an archive here at Manx Radio. It's where the stuff over the years has been placed, going back to way back when, bearing in mind it's 50-odd years that Manx Radio has been on the air, of course. Not all of it, sadly, kept, but lots of recordings on cassette, on CDs, on reel-to-reel, on wax cylinders, goodness knows what. And we just like going in and just having a random dip.
We do. And this is the first thing I saw when I walked in this morning.
Honestly.
I didn't seek this out, but I thought it might be quite amusing. And I don't think I was wrong. I am completely, hopelessly, madly, passionately, deeply, confusingly, totally, absolutely, fully, wholly, knowingly, desperately in love with you, I think.
When you're away, I'm restless, lonely, wretched, bored, dejected. Only here's the rub, my darling dear. I feel the same when you are near.
I never know what to say when I hear old recordings like that. There are no words. I'm not quite sure. I think I sound more like John Moss now than I sound like the old me. But anyway, there we go. That was a Valentine's poem from 2007, read in a very high squeaky voice.
It was. It's a very strange thing that when you go back and listen to old recordings. I remember doing that when the great David Collister, some of his early recordings, because David recorded about 30 odd years, 35 years or more with Manx Radio, and we used to work and they used to do Mandate and such like, of course, and I'd hear some of his early recordings and it's the same sort of thing. His voice 25 years earlier seemed to be several octaves higher.
I don't understand how Mossy sounds the same though. I don't know what's happening here, and I'm wondering what it's going to sound like, please God, in 10 years.
I don't like to think, but the mind boggles. It's a strange thing, and I think maybe it is. We were talking about that the other day, but there was something I was reading on air which suggested that your voice actually gets the other way, gets lower as you get older, which is a strange sort of thing. But yeah, it's interesting. And there's all manner of stuff we have actually found in the archives. But it is a lucky dip, so you never quite know what you're going to get. That really was the first thing you came to.
Genuinely, it was lying on the floor. It was like a sign that I had to bring to you. But anyway, that is all for this week. We will be back next week. Do check out the Manx Radio Facebook page for all the photos and videos associated with the programme. See you next time.
Take care.